Good morning. It's Friday, December 18th. And as I look out the window here, I'm sitting in my den, ranting. It's white, all white. No leaves left on the trees, but the little pine bushes that I have are covered in snow. The ground is covered in snow, and it's going to be that way till it melts. I don't intend to shovel anything in the backyard. I'm calling about a world leader who is smart enough to speak up and tell people what they ought to be doing. And I'm talking about Pope Francis. Yesterday, Pope Francis urged world leaders to divert funds used for armaments to confront the problems such as COVID-19 and to ensure that vaccines reach the poor and the most vulnerable nations. Now, that's a straightforward statement. No beating around the bush or anything. Stop spending your money on arms and armaments and help some people in the world. That was his message for the Roman Catholic Church's World Day of Peace, which is celebrated on January 1st. Francis also repeated a call for the establishment of a global fund of money slated for weapons to be used instead to help eradicate poverty. Now, those are two major causes in the world right now, poverty and the pandemic. And we have a world leader who stepped forward and said, here's something we ought to do about it. Now, we haven't heard anything like that from anybody else. At least I haven't heard anything like that from anybody else. And then he went on to say, how many resources are spent on weaponry, especially nuclear weapons, that could be used for more significant priorities, such as ensuring the safety of individuals, the promotion of peace, and the integral human development, the fight against poverty, and the provision of health care. Now, we all recognize that these problems truly exist. He's not making this stuff up. And it's a shame that we have all of these organizations that get together and they sit around tables and they talk about lots of things, and they talk about nuclear disarmament and nuclear control of weapons. But none of them has ever suggested anything like that I know of. And these are challenges. We have major challenges in the world. This topic probably belongs on the UN's docket. But that'll never happen because we don't have enough nations who believe in peace and helping each other. Most nations in the world are only out for themselves, or they pick on smaller countries that can't defend themselves. No, the UN is a terrible place. They could never get anything like this done. Anyhow, getting back to the Pope and nuclear weapons, since he took over in 2017, the Roman Catholic Church has hardened its stance against nuclear weapons and called for their total abolishment. In 2017, he said countries should not stockpile them even for the purpose of deterrence. And that's what most countries do. They're not planning to use them, but they want them just in case somebody else has them, and they're afraid of these other countries. And I don't blame those countries for stockpiling them in self-defense, because until we get to the point where countries in the world don't lie about what their nuclear intentions are, then you have to safeguard your population. You have to have an equal threat. It's terrible when you think about it. We have to have an equal threat. And a pandemic is an equal threat to everybody. And we see what that has done. So let's compare a pandemic to a nuclear war. I'm not sure which one would be worse. I know what the pandemic has done, but I don't know what a nuclear war would really do. And getting back to the Pope again, he said it would be a courageous decision if the world was able to establish this global fund using military expenditures and other various funds, nefarious funds, to permanently eliminate hunger and continue the development of the poorest countries. Now, Francis has got his head way up there in the sky, and he's making the good fight. He's making the good fight, even though I think deep in his heart he knows he's not going to get anywhere. The other thing he's done is he has condemned vaccine nationalism and said the poorest nations should not be left behind in the fight against coronavirus. And I'm not sure, but he might have been aiming that statement at our wonderful president who said America first. America should get the vaccines before everybody else. I guess we would call that vaccine nationalism. So he renewed his appeal to the political leaders and the private sector to spare no effort to make sure that these poorer nations had access to the vaccines. Pope Francis also took time to praise the work of medical staffs and other frontline workers who risk their lives helping coronavirus victims. And he was especially touched by those who died in the process. And he said, in the face of the pandemic, we have realized that we are all in the same boat. All of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row in the same direction. Row together to defeat this vicious virus. Now, here's a piece of good news. It didn't come from the Pope, but it came over the radio today. The vaccine vials from which the doses are drawn contains more than 5 doses. Like they're labeled that they contain 5, but some of them contain 6 and some of them contain 7 doses. So actually, we have received more doses than was originally stated. And that's the good news. That's the very good news for today. And having said that, and having ranted a little bit about the Pope, who I now admire more, I will say goodbye, and I will see you tomorrow in the morning. Bye.